If you don't know already, there's a quest line in Stranglethorn Vale called the Green Hills of Stranglethorn. The quest is notorious because its objective is to find the 18 pages of a book written by the famous dwarf hunter Hemmet Nessingwary. The game developer Jeff Kaplan made this quest as an homage to Ernest Hemingway, from which the famous hunter's name is an anagram. Kaplan said he wanted to put a short story into the game, incentivizing people to read it by making it a quest, though he thinks he just annoyed a bunch of people by making a really crappy quest. Personally, I love the quest, though I've never actually read the story until now with the release of Classic. So I thought I would bring to life one of my favorite quests for you, the Green Hills of Stranglethorn, with help from the one and only Hemmet Nessingwary. Alright, gather round. The Green Hills of Stranglethorn, Chapter 1. Our first day went about as well as one can expect for a stage to go. Most of our time was preoccupied with making the necessary arrangements to establish a base camp. I located an ideal setting by a freshwater river inlet. Judging by the old abandoned docks nearby, the site was inhabited some time ago. As for the original inhabitants, only time can tell that tale. For this expedition, I've assembled Ajax Roic and Sir S.J. Elgadin, along with my trusted servant Barnel Stonepot. I fought alongside Ajax's father in many battles for the defence of the Alliance. Seeing her grown is quite special. Her father schooled her well in the ways of weaponry. Her skills with the bow make me wonder if there's some elven blood running through those veins. Sir S.J. Elgadin comes from human aristocracy. His father, Count Elgadin, was renowned for his generosity. He was the count who lobbied for improved working conditions for the Stonemasons' Guild during the restoration of Stormwind after the Second Great War. In the years that followed after Stormwind betrayed the Stonemasons' Guild, Sir Elgadin grew bitter about the role of nobles within the kingdom. He no longer wished to uphold the position that his father's bloodline had earned for him in the House of Nobles. But I digress. The purpose of this story is not to act as a political treatise or a biography. This is the account of my experiences hunting big game in the Green Hills of Stranglethorn. We rose with the sun. Barnel began to prepare the morning meal, and I noticed Ajax's attention was somewhat distracted. The day's trek would be long, and our hunt would bring us close to danger. A lack of focus could easily lead to an errant mishap. Yet Ajax seemed unable to divert her gaze from Barnel, who stood by the edge of the river rinsing out his mess kit. Just as I was about to question Ajax's lack of interest in the day's hunting strategy, she reached for a quiver, drew an arrow and unleashed a shot right towards poor Barnel. But it was not for Barnel that Ajax was shooting at now, for when Barnel stepped aside, mouth agape, a large river crocodile floated to the surface with Ajax's arrow perfectly placed, right between his two large eyes. We set out towards the west through the thick overgrowth of the tangled jungle. Moving with slow, deliberate steps, we paced through thick foliage in search of prey. The morning passed with frustrated silence. Nothing was stirring in the vale, not even a breeze. By the afternoon, the expedition had grown restless. Barnel no longer strode with cautious steps of a predator tracking prey. Rather, he clumsily clomb through the path, often stepping noisily on dried leaves or fallen branches. During one such misstep, Elgadin laid a heavy hand on Barnel's shoulder. Ajax and I gave a casual glance, assuming the man was simply giving Barnel a much-needed scolding for his carelessness. Elgadin, however, gestured slowly with his hand towards a nearby fallen tree. Gazing back at us were two piercing black eyes just above a mouthful of razor-sharp fangs. Chapter 2. The beast was a male Stranglethorn tiger. Before I could cock my rifle, Elgadin raised his crossbow and fired upon the beast. The bolt missed its mark and caught the beast heavily in the left flank. The tiger made a futile attempt to flee, but its wound was too grave. The beast stumbled for a few tragic seconds until Barnel finished the kill with a thrown axe. The kill brought about a festive mood amongst the expedition. Barnel poured mead for all to enjoy, but our festivities were short-lived. As we were preparing the corpse for transport back to base camp, we were all caught off guard by a horrendous growl. In all my years, I've never heard anything so blood-curdling. On a rocky precipice above, silhouetted by the setting sun, I could make out the largest cat of prey I'd ever laid eyes upon. I was able to loose one clumsy volley with my rifle, but the cat held its ground. He growled once again, this time louder than the first, and then vanished. We gathered our belongings and headed solemnly back to camp. I had promised the expedition that we would spend the next day hunting panthers, as their furs are high in demand throughout Azeroth. It only makes sense that such demand should exist, with all the able-bodied hunters, trappers, and fur traders off giving their lives so valiantly in the name of the Alliance. Ajax and Sir Elgadin were anxious to learn how to hunt effectively with a dwarven rifle. I had the two humans leave their primitive range weapons at base camp. Barnell and I outfitted them with some of Ironforge's finest firearms. On this day we ventured towards the south, following some fresh panther tracks. Soon we reached a ravine spanned by a tremendous rope bridge. I could not help but think of Brent's descriptive writings of this region when I saw this engineering marvel. So often it was assumed that the native trolls were a primitive and uneducated race, yet as I gazed upon this master craftsmanship of the bridge, I was able to recognise the skill with which the troll builders overcame this seemingly impossible feat. Before long, Ajax tracked the panther to the southwest. We walked quietly, guns at the ready, in anticipation of our prey. A snapping of twigs from a nearby copse of trees drew our attention immediately. Something was in there. One stern glance at Barnell was enough to convey my thoughts. Barnell slowly lowered his rifle. This kill was not for us, it was for our human companions. Countless panthers had lost their lives in front of our smoking barrels. This kill would be for the humans. Both Ajax and Sir Elgadin stood poised, guns levelled at the bristling overgrowth at the base of the swaying trees. The midday sun beat heavily upon us. A slow trickle of perspiration trailed down from Elgadin's temple as he pulled the pin back. Upon the sound of the click, the thick flora parted, and a large black panther, a beautiful specimen, darted out onto the plain. Chapter 3. The humans trained their sights on the panther as it ran along the edge of the tree line. The barrels of their guns moved in perfect parallel tandem. Barnell gave me an urgent glance, but I shook my head now. This hunt was for the humans, not Barnell or me. Elgadin fired a booming shot, missing the panther altogether. Apparently, he was unprepared for the violent kickback of the rifle blast. His gun tossed back violently in his arms. The barrel swooped sideways and came up beneath Ajax's rifle. Ajax had chosen that exact moment to pull her trigger. The rifle that aimed now not clumsily towards the tree line went off with a distinct boom. A flock of birds screamed out of the canopy, scattering in every direction. A plume of smoke rose from a tree. We watched in awe as a tremendous branch fell squarely on the fleeing panther, breaking its back. As the weeks passed, our stockpile of panther and tiger skins grew immense. I decided it was time for the expedition to shift our focus to a new challenge: raptors. The humans, while appreciative of the training Barnell and I offered, decided to refrain from hunting with firearms. Ajax was more comfortable with a finely strung bow, and Elgadin never left camp without his sturdy crossbow. We set out at first light heading south past the Takashi ruins. Barnell voiced his concerns that we might encounter members of the Bloodscalp tribe. I reminded Barnell that the Bloodscalps were more concerned with destroying their tribal enemy, the Skull Splitters. Needless to say, Barnell was not comforted in the least. I, however, had a loaded rifle, a satchel full of gunpowder, and 3 deadly hunters with me to ease any concerns of an unfriendly ambush. I've stood before a towering infernal on the battlefield, the army of the Burning Legion advancing from all directions. An unruly band of trolls seems as harmless as a jackrabbit in the hills of Dunmarach. We passed the Takashi ruins without event, much to Barnell's relief. The party proceeded to head westward, towards the Great Sea, skirting the ruins of Zolkunda just to the south. And as we ascended the high sea bluffs, we spotted our first raptor. The beast never so much as detected our presence. In fact, the only greeting he received from the expedition was a bullet between the eyes. Sir Elgadin let out a hearty hurrah as Ajax nodded towards me with a keen approval. I sifted through my pack in search of my pipe, hoping to enjoy a celebratory smoke. Barnell began to scurry up the hillside to retrieve the raptor's corpse. I stared at the fallen beast with the satisfaction that accompanies every big kill. But I couldn't bask in the glory of the kill for long, for when I turned my eyes to the horizon, several silhouettes appeared cresting the hill just above poor Barnell. "Flee, Barnell!" I shouted. Ajax, Sir Elgadin and myself loosed a volley of bullets, arrows and bolts over Barnell and towards the pursuing raptors. One of us landed a kill amidst the confusion. Our hastily aimed shots were enough to bite Barnell's escape. Barnell clambered back down the hill and rejoined the party. We scurried off into the jungle, a pack of ferocious lash-tailed raptors stalking our every move. The hunters were now the hunted. Chapter 4. I led the party towards the sea, hoping the shoreline would provide refuge from the raptors. In our haste, we had drifted too far north, to a precariously high elevation. The mistake was made, the fault was mine. We stopped just short of the sheer cliff, the raptors just a few paces behind. I stepped slowly forward, gun raised. I had led these brave hunters to their death. I would die defending them. Lash-tailed raptors are particularly fierce, known for their unrelenting bloodthirst. They far outnumbered us, but I would be damned if I let them kill me and my comrades without shedding some of their own blood first. Ejek and Sir Elkadan readied their weapons, flanking me on either side, our backs to the sea. Barnell let out a defeated sigh and drew his axe. The lashtails were almost upon us. Their steady stride had slowed. They were stalking their prey for now, and they knew they had us trapped. And then something miraculous happened. From off to our side, we heard a distinct and terrifying roar from the great white tiger. Despite their numbers, the raptors turned and scattered in all directions. We saw but a brief white flash as the tiger darted past us and pounced on one of the raptors. No command needed to be given. All 4 members of our party knew it was time to run. We sprinted all the way back to base camp, never slowing. Later that night we all sat quietly around the campfire, knowing our lives had been saved by a bizarre twist of fate. Such are the risks of the big game hunter. We toy with fate by delivering it, yet each of us at some point will face fate's razor-sharp teeth. This dwarf is just glad that moment did not come upon the Green Hills of Stranglethorn.